When I first saw the Serica 5303, I knew that I wanted to buy it. I knew that I wanted to own it. I got really excited about it. But I ended up buying this Ipose 5303. And I want to tell you why I chose this particular watch over the original Serica. Hello, you're watching James. My name's James. You're watching me. And I'm talking about watches. And today, I want to talk to you about why I made the deliberate decision to buy the Ipose 5303 over the watch that it was homaging, the Serica 5303. Because I made this decision very deliberately. I was actually in a position where I could afford the original watch. I could afford that Serica, but I actively chose not to. And I chose not to after a lot of time, thought, and a lot of research. And I want to talk to you about why I chose to do that today. Now, if you've watched my channel before, you'll know I have no issues with buying Homage watches. But normally when I buy a Homage watch, one of the main decisions, the big reason why I choose the Homage over the watch that it is homaging is the price. Because normally the price between the Homage and the watch that is homaging is huge. And I'm not going to spend that amount of money on that sort of watch. So being a Homage version of it normally ticks boxes for me, and I'm very happy about that. But today, I bought this watch, this Ipose watch, over the Serica for different reasons. Price was a small factor because it is cheaper than the original Serica, but it's only one of many factors. And I want to address something first before I even jump into why I chose it. I want to talk about that Serica 5303. I want to say firstly that it is a gorgeous looking watch, and that's why it grabbed my attention. I think they've done an amazing job coming up with this beautiful watch. They've really designed something that is brilliant, and it really excited me when I saw it. But I do want to say that it is not an original design, or at least it's not a completely original design. Because I'm talking about a Homage watch versus the original watch today, I do want to point out just a couple of quick things about this Serica. Because let's check out the watch. Beautiful. Well, let's check out that dial. It's really cool. But you know what I think of when I see that dial? I think of clocks, the space age clocks from the 1960s. Do you see a bit of a correlation between the two? I certainly do. This one here is a young hands wall clock from the 1960s. And it's one of many from that sort of time period, that sort of space age sort of period. There's even this clock hanging up in the Smithsonian in the USA. So this sort of style, for me, that's where I think they got the idea for this sort of dial layout. Now you may think that strap on this Serica looks amazing, this mesh strap and how it integrates into the watch. And I agree. I think it's fantastic. It's a real amazing element of this watch that really draws me to it. But they're not the only ones that do this. They're not some creative geniuses that have come up with this new idea of how to integrate a bracelet into a watch. No, have a look at this one here. Okay, this is a mesh bracelet. It integrates differently, but it's another integrated mesh bracelet. And here's another one. Again, a different style of how they've integrated it, but still an integrated mesh. So it's not the first time a mesh has been integrated into a watch. And check out this rubber strap. This one's made specifically for Seiko, and it has integrated lugs that go into your Seiko watch. And that reminds me a lot of this integrated system. And check out this case shape. This is another big feature of this Serica. It's beautiful. I really like it. It's a really nice design choice. But it's by no means an original case shape. In fact, it's almost a one-for-one copy with the Amiga Aquaterra. It's been mentioned before about the Serica has taken this inspiration from the Aquaterra. When you put them side by side, how that big chamfered edge is, they are very, very similar. But don't get me wrong, the Serica is a beautiful looking watch. That's why it drew me to it so much and why I kept coming back and thinking about buying it. But what I wanted to just point out is that it's not a completely unique design. And I wanted to point that out because this Homage watch is perhaps not a Homage watch. Or is it? Because it's been pointed out a number of times that it looks very similar to the original Serica watch. And that is mostly because there's no particular logo on the dial. And when there's no logo on the dial, well then it starts looking very similar, doesn't it? I have to tell you though, this Ipose, it's not trying to be an exact replica at all. There is lots of things about it that are different, so I still consider it a homage. So why then did I pick the Homage over the original, even if I could afford to buy the original? The first reason, and although it's not the main reason, and although I've said it a couple of times it did partly have to do with price. The Serica, for me, cost around about 2,000 Australian dollars, which is a lot of money for a watch, but it's within an achievable amount for me. If I really wanted to buy this watch, I could have for that sort of price range. This particular Ipose cost me around 500 Australian dollars. So the price gap's not too huge, but it's still enough to sort of be part of the considerations why I chose it over the original. But if it had been the price alone, I would have bought the original. So the second reason why I chose the Ipose over the Serica is because of the movement. Now, the movement that they chose to use in the Serica, I believe it's probably a good movement, but there's some inherent characteristics to it that I don't particularly like. And I've watched every single review, read every single review of the Serica, and a lot of people are saying the same things, which is what scared me off it. The movement that they're using is a Swiss movement, which sounds fine, except for there's some inherent issues with it or characteristics that put me off, especially if I'm spending 2,000 Australian dollars. And that is the crown action's weird, to the point where people aren't even sure if there is a ghost position for a date wheel or not. That's how sort of weird the crown action is. There's an issue with setting the time. Sometimes you can only set the time backwards. Sometimes the watch hacks, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes the minute hand, when you push the crown back in again, jumps forward or jumps backwards. And if this was an affordable watch, a much cheaper watch, well, I'd probably be sort of okay with that. But if I'm spending 2,000 Australian dollars, that's a concern for me. But if it was just price and just the sort of slight weird movement, maybe I still would have bought the original Serica. But there's a third reason, and this is probably what pushed me over the edge in order to buy this particular sort of homage of it, and that is the dimensions of the watch. The Serica has a really nice set of dimensions, a case of 39mm and a lug-to-lug of 46.5, which I personally quite like, but this one, slightly bigger and slightly more into the dimension that I really like. This one here is 40mm by about 48mm lug-to-lug. Just that tiny little bit bigger makes me like it just that much more. And I know that I'm more comfortable wearing this size watch over a slightly smaller watch. Again, I'm not saying that this is a bad dimensions, not at all. Very nice. I just prefer these. And I guess the last thing that really then drove it home is this one comes with a date feature. Because you can buy this with the PT5000, the SW200, or even an ETA movement, it comes with a date functionality to that movement. And they chose, instead of doing a ghost position and having a no date variant that looks like the Serica here, they chose to put a date position at the 6 o'clock. And although I think it sort of muddles the dial a little bit, takes away from this slightly clean look that I do like, because it's a watch that I'm planning on wearing a lot, I chose to go with something that had the date on it because it's a little bit more functional. So they're the reasons why I chose the Ipose. And I wanted to point those out because it's not a one-for-one copy of the Serica. It's not a choice of just because I'm saving some money. There's other factors that led to my decision. And I took a long time to make this decision because I knew that I really liked this style, but I wanted to buy the right watch. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, maybe check these ones out next.